The following program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.
Hi, welcome to The Ring and All Other Sports. My name is Leo Connors, and tonight I got a very special guest. I got one of the hosts of the Truth, Justice in the New England Pro Wrestling Way podcast, Matt Spectro, also known as Tarzan Taylor. How you doing, Matt?
Hey, thanks for having me, Leon.
No problem. But we got a little over 56 minutes. Let's just jump right into it.
Sounds good.
Matt, where'd you grow up?
I was born in Connecticut, but majority of my life was in New Hampshire. I moved to New Hampshire when I was 3 or 4 years old. So I'm Granite State almost my entire life.
Nice. All right. When did you first see pro wrestling?
God, the first time I can remember, it was with my stepfather. He was watching wrestling. I remember it was Greg the Hammer Valentine. This is probably 1981, 82. It's hard for me to remember. And I was really kind of interested, but I didn't get hooked probably until 1984, the year Hulk Hogan won the heavyweight title.
Right.
Which is pretty common for my generation. It's pretty common,
right,
where everybody got into it.
Yeah, I'm a little older than you. I got into it in 72. I was 7 years old. But were your family and friends into it?
My brother, one of my two brothers, Mark Vincent, he was my tag team partner in the Noise Boys. He and I obsessed it, loved it, watched it. Wrestled all the time in the backyard, read the magazines. My other brother, he'd watch it, but he wasn't like all that into it. I didn't get friends that actually liked wrestling until I think I was in high school, to be honest.
Oh, wow.
None of my friends in grade school really were all that into it.
Now, who's older, you or Mark?
Mark is 3 years older than I am.
Okay. All right. And you started first too, right?
But I started first. Yeah. He started after me. I don't think he really thought it was going to happen. And then when he saw me and our other friend, Big Daddy Walker, do it, and then I think he was like, all right, this is something I can do. This sounds fun. And he trained, I think, about a year and a half after my first match.
Nice. Dave Walker's going to come up in the name game after.
All right.
So who were some of your favorites when you started? Was it Hogan?
Ricky the Dragon Steamboat was always my favorite wrestler as a kid. Still probably, if not my favorite, definitely my top three. Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. And I liked, my brother and I liked the Macho Man, even though he was probably, him and the Hart Foundation were probably the only heels that we liked back then. Other than that, we were typical babyface, loved all the babyfaces. But yeah, Ricky the Dragon Steamboat definitely was my favorite wrestler.
Hey, Jeff, did you ever get to meet him?
Unfortunately, no. I wish I had. I know he did some chaotic shows. He's probably one of the only guys that I would, well, obviously if I met Hulk Hogan, I'd probably mark out, but Steamboat would be my number one guy. I would love to meet Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. Yeah.
Yeah, he was awesome. I got to meet him when I did the catering for Ring of Honor. He was doing a thing with Punk, and what a nice guy, man. Really was a great guy.
Yeah, it's definitely my favorite. I've heard that he's a great guy too.
Yeah. All right. When did you know you wanted to be a wrestler?
I always wanted to be a wrestler, but at the 80s, it just didn't seem in the card. Back then, you're talking Land of the Giants, Hulk Hogan, Andre the Giant, King Kong Bundy. It wasn't until the 90s when, like, Bret Hart became world champion. Shawn Michaels was a big deal. The 1, 2, 3 Kid, like Mr. Perfect, all those guys they're big, but most of them were my height or a little shorter. Right. So then I was like, okay, maybe it's a realistic goal to actually become a pro wrestler. Nice. And then I started working out, and I was like, all right, I'm going to try it out. So I got started a little later. Most people start now, especially 16 or 17. I didn't start wrestling training until I was 24.
Oh, wow. Yeah, because I've heard you say on your show that like you wouldn't really want your stepsons training to be wrestlers at their age, at 15
it's crazy
years old.
Yeah, I don't know how the hell that happens. That's just so insane. My oldest stepson's 14. I think he's older than Mighty Minnie and Elio when they started training. So it's just crazy to me, the concept of training at that age.
Absolutely. All right. So I know who trained you, but some people may not. Who trained you?
I trained with the Lobster Man, Jeff Costa. Jeff did more of he was more outside the ring telling you what to do and helping you. And then most of the stuff in the ring was Maverick Wild and Rip Morrison.
Great,
And,
great guys.
Other guys helped, but those were like the three main guys that did a majority of the training.
Okay. Who else was in the class?
In my class, Big Daddy Walker, the Convict.
Yep.
There was Justin Powers, who was also just in shape. He was in there. Trying to think. There's probably, other guys who had matches. Iron Man, Tim Walker, but I don't know if you would remember him.
I do. I remember him. Yep.
There was a guy who did a Shawn Michaels knockoff. I think it was Shane Michaels, they called him.
Okay.
But those are the only ones I can remember that really stick out would be Justin Powers, Big Daddy Walker, the Convict, Tim Walker. Those are the guys that were there and that stuck around for a long period of time. So.
Right. Okay. Why don't you tell us about your first match?
First match. It's funny you said that because we just did an episode of the podcast at the beginning of the year where we looked back, me and Julian, in our first match. And first match was in Hudson, New Hampshire. I don't remember the date. It was 1998, and it was a steel cage match. My first match ever was in a steel cage against Big Daddy Walker because Jeff did a night of all steel cage.
Yep, that's Jeff for you.
Fun night. We watched it again. It wasn't horrible. I cringe a lot watching a lot of it now, but it was a good time. I really, really enjoyed it, and I don't regret doing it. And I still like the match, even though definitely I can look back now and say, hey, it needs a lot of work.
All right. We're going to jump into some fan questions, then we'll talk a little bit about your career, and then we'll play the name game. All right. First question is from Mike Crockett, who, as we both know, is on an extended hiatus from Mike wants to know, who is one talent that you wanted to bring into Chaotic as a booker, but never did or never could?
That's a good question. Trying to think, it's most of the guys I wanted to bring in. John Poe, Matt Taven, Sean Burke, they all made it in there.
Oh, nice.
Trying to think if there's anybody that I tried to that I just couldn't get. I had wanted DC Dillinger, and he had wanted to come in. It was a combo at first. It wasn't lining up. And then Dave, I love Dave, but Dave was very particular on the way he would come in. And at the time, it wasn't in the cards. He would be the only one. I wanted to use Eddie Edwards more often than I could, but his schedule just didn't allow it. Those are the only two guys I would have liked to have brought in. I wish things had worked out better with Dave, where the stars had lined up and he would have been, at the time, he really was very adamant about wanting to be brought in a certain way. And it just didn't work out the way. It was hard because there were so many guys. You can't just bring in anybody and have an angle for him. Right off the bat. So I think Dave was the one guy I wish I could have got in there more.
Right.
Now you became, I'm sure there's somebody. So,
right. Now, did you become friendly with him through NECW?
Yeah. I first met Dave through WFA, Steve Bradley's old company.
Okay.
And then later on, I had known him in NECW. I liked Dave. I worked with him a couple of times with Steve. I thought he was underrated. I thought he had a lot of talent. Really good with heat. I think he could have been more than what he was. I think I do firmly believe, and I know people always want to babyface people when they've passed away, but I've always said I thought Dave was an underrated talent that could have done more.
Yeah.
I mean, look at some of the guys that now they do a lot of similar things to what Dave was doing then.
Right. Absolutely. And he was definitely what a heel though, huh? I mean,
Dave,
he hated him, man. And I was one of them, you know?
Dave could get a lot of heat. His personality. I don't know if Dave could be a babyface, to be honest.
Right. But I mean, like you said, underrated, man. He really was a great wrestler.
Yeah, I think Dave was very underrated.
Yeah, and I know what you're saying. Like when people do pass away, people do tend to say things, but like you've known him forever, and I mean he was loved by a lot of guys, man. For a guy who, as a fan looking at him, he looked like he was like unapproachable to even just like say hi if you walk by him. You know what I mean? Because he did have that look like, give me that look like, stay away from me or I'll slap you. But
Dave's kind
of awesome.
And his personality in real life's not much different than his persona in wrestling. Which I kind of always loved about Dave. He's always was a funny guy, not always intentionally, just the way he acted always made me laugh. I like Dave a lot. I really the worst what happened. So.
Right, exactly. He actually passed away a year after my brother did on the same day,
Oh, that's
August
horrible. That's so
14th.
horrible.
Yeah, it was ridiculous. It was really bad. But yeah. Did you have to go to his famous Christmas parties?
No, I've never been to one of Dave's
As
Christmas parties.
I used to see George posting pictures of the Christmas parties. But all right. Well, Crockett's got a follow-up question. He
All
said,
right.
who is the one talent you wanted to stop booking, but didn't
Well,
get to stop him or couldn't?
boy. I
Crockett
really
caught
didn't want to.
trouble.
I didn't really want to book Gino Martino anymore, to be honest with you.
Yep.
It's just very difficult at the time, and Gino has very set ways of how he wants to be booked and whatnot. And there was an incident earlier on when I started where I got reamed out by him for some stuff, and I don't know. I just didn't sit well with me at the time. I probably, and Gino had been around a long time. It's nothing against Gino personally. I know everyone's gonna think I'm attacking him personally. It's just there wasn't a lot you could do with a guy that doesn't. He's very very particular in the way he wants to be used in books. So if Gino would be the person that would come to mind. And I'm sure Crockett asked that deliberately, hoping, thinking I wouldn't say that. But.
Right. All right. Well, you're not going to like this question because you're not on Facebook and you didn't get to see the questions. But you can probably know when I tell you who said it, you're going to know what she's going for. Susanna Louise wants to know if you had to book the show today, exactly, and were required to book at least one comedic intergender match, who would you book? I knew something was going to happen. I know.
It's hard to say because I don't know. I mean, if we're talking New England, I'm not as familiar with a lot of the girls around now. I would personally book a smaller guy, now granted in wrestling today, it seems like a lot of the guys are smaller, but if I had to do it, I would book someone that is probably the same size as a girl, because not one of the bigger guys. I mean, I don't know. I've seen a lot of these guys wrestle, but I've never met a lot of them, so I don't know how tall they are. Probably CJ Cruz would be a good guy because CJ's a smaller guy, even though he's kind of stocky. He's probably a guy I could see putting in the match with the girl. As long as there's someone like Davey Ann or someone who has some size to him. Some of these girls are like, I mean, they're little things. I still think even the smallest guy could demolish most of them. So probably someone like a CJ, someone that's a smaller stature. I think I would try. I certainly wouldn't do like a Richard Holiday or someone of that size because, I mean, to me, he would kill him. So, but I haven't seen all the girls out there. There could be some girls that, are much bigger and all that, like someone like an Awesome Kong or somebody like that.
Well, I gotta tell you this. I'm not against the intergender matches. I know that you don't like them and stuff, but I did see one at Limitless Wrestling that it turned me off completely. It was MJF taking on Ashley Vox. And MJF was taking her over his head, okay, and running in the ring and throwing her into fans. And it was like the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen. And I thought the match was it was horrible. The match was horrible. And nothing against Ashley Vox, but it wasn't believable. You said Davey Ann. If it would have been Davey Ann versus MJF, it would have been a better match. Davey Ann is incredible.
But I wouldn't have that spot with two guys, let alone a guy and a girl. Why you would throw them into the crowd? To me, the biggest problem is either the guy, he beat up a girl and that doesn't mean anything, or he lost to a girl and then it's just not realistic. So it's a subject that comes up a lot on our podcast. I told Julian after last week, I'm going to try and not bring it up anymore. I think we've talked about it to death at this point. Maybe if we had Drew from Beyond Wrestling on, maybe it would come up again because
he have almost every show he does one. You know what I mean?
But he has also a lot more talent to choose from, so maybe he can make it work better than even though that one tag match I saw, Bear Country and Sea Stars was terrible. But
exactly though, the size difference. How could it be believable? You know what I mean? Like you guys were saying.
One clothesline from Bear Country, to me, the match is over. But maybe I'm out of touch. Maybe that's wrestling today. So.
No, I agree with you on that for sure. I mean, I guess in my eyes, as a guy that doesn't bother me to see him as long as it's the size matches up a little bit or the talent. You know what I mean? But I'm going to say it. I've never said it before, but I'm not a big fan of Ashley Vox. I don't think she's that talented. I'm probably going to get heat from people.
Probably. I've only seen her once or twice, so I really couldn't form that much of an opinion on her. So, but
Okay.
it's an opinion. I mean, some people like some things, some don't. They shouldn't get mad just because you're not a fan of somebody.
Right. True. All right. So Chris Venom wants to know, ask him about the NECW show where we first met in Waltham, where you violated town laws and they made new laws after that. Did you violate some laws in Waltham at an NEC? No?
What? I don't know what he's talking about.
He said, I'll just read it one more time. Ask him about the New England Championship Wrestling show where you first met him in Waltham, where you violated town laws and made new laws. No?
I don't remember that at all.
All right.
Maybe I'm older
I'll find out from Chris.
Yeah, if Chris can get into specifics, I'll address him. I just don't really remember what he's talking about, to be honest. I don't remember violating any laws, but I did a lot of stupid shit, stupid stuff in my time, so I probably did. I just can't remember.
All right, so now we're going to go into Mav. He's got about 7 questions. Maverick Wild. Yeah. He says, first one is, ask him if he ever figured out how to get gum out of his trunks.
We're going to move on to the next one.
All right. Mav, come on, Mav. You got to get better questions than that. No, Mav wants to know, did you ever pay Jeff back for the Conquistador suit that he bought? Or I bought it. Mav bought a Conquistador.
I didn't. I don't see why I have to pay back. I never used the damn thing. You know?
Oh, really? So you weren't a Conquistador?
I was never a Conquistador. Brian Fury and Justin, last I checked, were the ones that had that gear.
All right.
Pay them back. I never once was a Conquistador. I was the Kane knockoff at one point, but
right. Maybe Mav's had a few too many concussions. I'll ask him later.
But I could be.
He's got a whole bunch, so I'm gonna skip the next one because he says, has he ever been back since? And I don't know where you guys were in the first place. So, all right, this is a good one though. I didn't know you wrestled him either. Describe wrestling Doug Williams.
Maverick has got me confused with Justin, I think. I've never wrestled Doug Williams.
You know something?
Justin's wrestled Doug Williams. Justin also had the Conquistador outfits.
Yeah. We're going to skip over the rest
Williams, but never done.
Oh, I'm sure. All right. Scott Beckman wants to know, what are the chances of the podcast being every week rather than every 2 weeks? And then he says, you and Julian have a great thing going. And I agree.
Thanks. I appreciate that. Thanks, Scott. We want to make the thing weekly with, the world being in the state right now. It's not in the cards. We're going to be trying an episode without a guest. We're going to be reviewing some local matches. We're going to see how it works. And if that works out, we might try going more often than 2 weeks. It's just, we have a guest every week. So sometimes it's not easy to book a guest. But once things calm down in the world, and we're going to try that experimental episode, and if that works, we're going to entertain the idea of trying to go every week.
Nice. I'd like that. Especially, I think a lot of people around here are disappointed because they want more because they don't have the wrestling podcast about nothing anymore. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know. I think that left a gap. And I'm sure there's other podcasts, but those are the only ones that I was really all that familiar with.
Right. All right.
Anyway.
Okay. Now, my question is, I already asked you this off air, and I won't say anybody's name, and you don't have to either, but if you want, you can. Do you think any of your past guests on your podcast were full of, number 2, and pulling answers out of their, you know what?
I think everybody has some questions they don't want to answer. They're worried about, offending certain people. I've heard a lot of flack about the Sheldon episode. A lot of people said Sheldon said a lot of things that weren't true. It's hard for me to say. I do think Sheldon's episode, if you listen to it, he tends to never be at fault for any of the problems that he mentions. Right. So I don't know if I would say he's full of it as per se. I just don't know if his perspective is accurate. Chris Sullivan said a couple of things that I wasn't sure. He had said some stuff about Sherman and Scotty Slade that I had asked them about, and the stories aren't matching up exactly. So I don't know if it's Sherman and Scotty or if it's Chris Sullivan. Okay. I don't think there's anybody on the show that I think was full of it like the whole time. I think most people just edited, selectively what they didn't want to say and what they didn't want to, they didn't want to get out there. Nobody wants to as much as people talk a lot of crap, nobody wants to go out there and rip everybody apart. Everybody wants to babyface a little bit. I'm sure I'm guilty of it too. I'm sure I've said things in a better light on the show where I've made myself look better than they are. But I'm trying to think of anybody else because now we've done a lot of episodes. I can't really think of anyone off the top of my head that I would say was really
Todd
full of it
Sobel?
the whole time. God, yeah.
I thought it was a
know
good
with
episode,
Todd.
and I'm not a big fan of Todd, but I thought it was a good episode.
No. I'm trying to think of the Todd episode, anything that he said that was specific. Well, there was one thing he had said something about Mav never being part, but Mav was on my show and he said he had helped out in a financial way at the very beginning. So somebody's either not remembering or someone's just full of it on some level. But I'm sure with somebody talking about interaction with talent, everybody's full of it a little bit. But you're also telling your perspective of what happened. So I know some people got mad at me and Julian, and I said, well, I can't control what other people say on the show.
Right.
And sometimes they're talking about incidences that I'm not even there. So, I mean, I wouldn't know. So, but no, I don't think anyone's been full of it 100%. At the same time, I wouldn't say anyone's been 100% honest.
Okay.
I could be wrong. Ryan Drew, to me, seemed like the most sincere of anybody we've had on the show. But that's might be just because it's fresh in my head. It just happened. It was like 2 episodes ago. But no, I can't. Yeah, I'd say Sheldon and Sullivan, some of the stuff might have been kind of not being honest. I've heard a lot of negative things about the Sheldon episode. A lot of people said that his version is not what happened. Some of it I'm around for, some I'm not. So it's not for me to say. Like I tell everyone, it's an opinion show. Their opinion's their opinion. I'm not there to call someone out necessarily. I'm just there to try and have an entertaining show and try and press for honest answers, which a lot of times we don't get.
Right. Okay. I got to ask you real quick before I move on to the next question. This is just from me. Were you on the show when Bradley was Santa for Sheldon?
No, that was right when Steve had come back. We were being booked in NECW at the time. I don't know I can't remember the date or why, but we weren't on that particular show.
Okay.
But we were still in the company. But I remember being told about Brian Fury had told me about it. And we were still with Sheldon because I remember Steve being on a couple shows that we were on. But that particular show, for whatever reason, we weren't booked on that show.
I was actually there selling my wrestling merchandise, and I only sold it at Sheldon's once because he charged me double what everybody else does. $75 to sell my merchandise. So I was one and done, but I was grateful to be there that night. Bradley came over to my table as Santa, and he saw I had a Missy Hyatt book, and he grabs it, he picks it up, and he goes, "Ho, ho, ho. What a freaking ho," he says. So now I'm looking at him, and he's like, I was on somebody's benefit show down in Ohio. You know, it was either like, maybe it was Mark Curtis, the referee there that passed away from cancer. But and it was funny. So when he came out of Santa in the last match, I remember running out there just to see who it was when he ripped it off. It was crazy. Place blew up, man, because nobody had seen Bradley around, in years.
Yeah, well, long time. Yeah, it's I think the first appearance he made, because I think that was predated the first WFA show, if I remember correctly. So that was his first appearance back in New England. So it's a big deal. I wish I was there, but I was not at that show. I don't know why. I can't remember why we weren't booked because we were working for the company at that time. Right.
Beth Phoenix was at that show too. I know. I got the All Nighters in the name game later. Did you wrestle them?
I wrestled. Me and John Walters in a tag match wrestled the All Nighters. I remember that.
All right, cool. We'll talk about that after. Dan Bolia, the guy that you guys couldn't figure out how to say his name on the Ryan Drew podcast. His name is Dan Bolia. He's been a guest on my show 7 times. Good friend of mine. He says, what were your favorite moments of being the booker?
Oh, man, there's some really good ones. I would say my all-time favorite moment was the night that Brian Malonis won the company back from Sean Gorman. That was one of the hottest crowds I've ever seen in any of the shows I booked. Rich had been fired by Gorman. He made a surprise run in, did the tackle. The crowd was so hot. Like the crowd, I know it's weird because, wrestling it's probably a testament to how good Gorman is, but that crowd really, really hated him and they really wanted Chaotic to go back to normal. I would say of all the moments, that is probably my favorite moment that I ever booked. That whole angle was good. I'd say the payoff of the the free Brian Fury angle, really good. That was like almost a year's worth of build to Cold Fury 11, where he beat Surratt. Really good angle. Those two are the ones that stick out in my head as probably my favorites. There were a lot. Those two are two of my favorites of all time, but there's been so many. I mean, I was blessed. I got to work with, a lot of look at the talent I got to work with where they are now. I mean, I got to work with Oni Lorcan, Matt Taven, Brian Malonis, Ivar, Sasha Banks, Tommaso Ciampa. I was really blessed with an amazing locker room. There was a lot of memories. Those are the two that would stick out the most as my all-time favorites.
Okay. He also has a follow-up. Are there any decisions you regret making as the booker?
Yeah, definitely some. There was a short-lived thing with the East Coast Cowboy. We did a heel turn. We made him like a political type figure. I can't remember his name at the same time. It was an idea that I liked, and I was friends with Greeley, but I don't think it meshed well for him. That was not a idea I liked very much. That didn't work out that great. No fault of his as much. I don't think it was a gimmick made. That gimmick would have worked for somebody else. That was short-lived though, so I don't have a lot of regrets. Yeah, there was an angle we did with this kid. I don't remember his real name. David Dunn was the gimmick. We were doing a Jackass type gimmick, and we were doing spots where he was getting hurt, kind of like Jackass type. And we did one that never aired, where he got hurt and had to get I think he got a concussion. And that's probably my biggest regret. That never should have happened. And I take responsibility for that one. I should have thought better of that. And especially for something we never used. We had done other stuff that we aired, but we never aired that one because I felt so bad about him getting hurt. And that kind of was the end for him with Chaotic. That was my biggest regret. I put that kid in a position where that happened, where he wasn't getting paid, really anything to speak of, and him getting hurt, that I regret that to this day. I wish we had never done that particular spot. That's probably the biggest regret I do have of anything I ever booked in Chaotic.
Okay. Anthony Brogna. You know Anthony? Royce Bishop?
I know the name. Yes.
Royce,
okay, yes.
All right. He says, if you could book today, what are some angles you'd like to do around here? I don't know if you want to give away your secrets. If you ever book again.
It's hard to say because a lot of the booking, for me, is I would watch. At first, I would see what the crowd was reacting to and whatnot and want to go there. I would want to do something where, I don't know how, but creating the illusion of something's real. Like, I know it's very difficult in today's wrestling.
Right.
I don't know what that would be. I don't know how exactly to do that. I would just want to do something where it wouldn't be as much about the wrestling. I would just want to do an angle that you could create the illusion that these people would buy into it, that angle was actual real, that even like the guys that are smart to the business would be like, this is a real thing. Right. I don't know what you would do. I would have to actually go to a lot of shows and see a lot more of the town out there. I watch a lot on YouTube, but I'm not in touch with a lot of what's going on now. I think that the culture, I think there's an angle that you could probably do something with them that I think would be really good. I think I don't know how much they've done, how much they might have been done to death at this time, but I really like that gimmick, what I've seen of it. That's something I think you could use those guys to make someone believe someone was real. I don't know how you do it because wrestling's so exposed nowadays.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry if that answer's not too specific, I guess. But
that's all right. It's an answer.
I would like to do. Yeah, I would like to do something where you could really make the people buy into something being real. But I think for that, you would have to have like Facebook, social media. You would have to commit to it 24/7. Right. And I don't know if you could find the talent willing to do that in 2020, but who knows?
Okay. Michael Morse, he's one of the owners of APW.
APW, yeah. He was on our show.
If a company said, here's my roster, book it however you want, but this is how we'd like to end it, would you consider returning to the business? I think he's offering you a job.
Right now, more than anything, it's a time frame. I don't have the time now. I would love to come back and book. I've said that before. It's just in my life now, I don't have the time. But if I always tell people, and I'm serious about this, I would take less money to have more control of the product. I would be more interested in coming back for more control than less money. We're not making any money in independent wrestling for the most part. Some people are, but booking, you're never going to really make any money. A lot of times I just wanted control. I wasn't always the only booker of Chaotic Wrestling. There was usually at least a co-booker committee. So really, I think you can do anything with any roster, no matter if you think it's talented or not, if you're willing to believe in them and work to their strengths. So, yes, I would definitely return under those circumstances if my schedule permitted it. I just had a daughter like less than 6 months ago. So,
Yeah,
right
I was
now is
gonna
not the
say,
best time.
right.
And I'm not going to run it out. I would like to do it. But yeah, the answer is yes. If I would do that for sure, just not right today, maybe in the near future.
Right. Nice. Congratulations on your daughter. I have two, so but mine are adults. I'm a lot older than you. All right. All right. Mav, I'm positive this is a question for you because he
Not for
told me this
Justin.
on my show. He wants to know, why did you stop me from pummeling the skunk at the gym in Nashua? You wanted to beat the crap out of him.
That
You
is,
remember that?
I was there. That did happen. Yes, we were practicing at Jeff's old school, and I was holding him, and Mav went to hit him, and no, Mav was holding him, and I punched him, and when he sold, he like headbutted Mav, like he sold backwards and headbutted Mav right in the face, and Mav just started wailing on him, and I don't know what got into me because I've always been stiff, and I didn't think it would be any great loss if we beat the hell out of him, but I was just like, I don't know, man. Maybe it's not the best idea to start pummeling. I remember that well. Oh my God, I laugh at it now. At the time, it was a little scary because it's very rare I'd seen Mav really get that angry.
Yeah, that guy Skunk though, he's pretty hated all throughout wrestling though, pretty much.
Yeah,
I don't even know how he got booked all the time.
He's very over the top.
Yeah,
I know why he got booked in Jeff's. I don't know why he got booked beyond Jeff's. That's something what Chaotic, I think, used him, and don't ask me why.
I don't know why Jamie hired him. Maybe it wasn't even Jamie then. Maybe it was the guy. Who was the guy? Randy Miller used to be the owner.
It might have been Randy
that
Miller. I don't know. I'll have to ask Jamie about that.
Yeah, definitely ask him. I'd love to know the answer to that. All right, Anthony Brogna. Royce has another question. He says, since everyone is asking booking questions, I'll switch gears. Who are some of your favorite opponents who did you not get to work with that you wish you would have? Is there anybody that like a favorite? He should have said favorite wrestlers, like New England guys, who were some of your favorites who you did not get to work with. Was there anybody that you wish?
Yeah, I always wanted to work with John Walters, Hurricane John Walters. I got to team with him once, but I would love to have worked a singles match with him. I always wanted to work Wagner. I never got to work Wagner in a match. I would love to work those two guys. Those are off the top of my head, two guys in the air that were big deal and when I was around that I didn't get to wrestle. Because I wrestled I wrestled Fury, I wrestled Malonis, I've wrestled Todd, I've never done a singles match with Brian Malonis. I wrestled him in a tag match. Brian Malonis is another guy I would have liked to have wrestled in a match. But yeah, I'd say those three guys, Brian Malonis, Wagner, Hurricane John Walters, those are three guys I really wish I had gotten to work at least once. I never got to work two of those guys ever once, and I only ever got to work Malonis in a tag match.
Okay. Well, since you stopped wrestling, has there anybody that's come into wrestling now that you go, wow, man, I wish I was working so I could work them right now?
Let me
because there is some good talent out here right now.
Yeah, I was still around when Christian came around, and he's come a long way. I've seen some of his stuff, really good. He's a kid I wouldn't mind working. Trying to think anybody that's really impressing me around here in New England, because a lot of the guys were still around, or I haven't seen wrestle enough to really judge.
Okay.
Off the top of my head, yeah, I would say Christian was a guy I would love to have had a match with. I can't think of anyone else off the top of my head. There must, like everything, the minute we're off the air, I'm going to remember like 20 answers to these questions.
Absolutely.
He's the one that would come to mind right now.
Okay.
Christian would be the one, yeah.
All right. Brian Privatera wants to know, will the Noise Boys ever reunite?
I doubt that very soon. I don't think my brother ever would want to come back, and I'm not in horrible shape, but I'm not nearly in good shape to get into the ring. Like I've been a real slacker working out last couple of years, so never say never, but I really, really doubt I'm ever going to have another wrestling match.
Okay. Now we're just going to talk a little bit about your career. Now you teamed with your brother Mark for Jeff and for Sheldon. Is there any other promotions that you guys teamed up and worked?
We worked WFA. We worked for Sheldon. We worked a couple of Top Rope shows, and we worked for Jeff. Okay. I think that's it. I think those are the four that I can remember. Because we definitely worked for Top Rope. Worked for
Okay.
Sheldon, worked for WFA, and worked for Jeff. I can't think of any other places we worked
So
together
you
as
guys
a
never
tag
worked
team.
for Mav? No, you didn't
I
work
don't
for
think we
Mav.
worked for Mav as a tag team. When my
Okay.
brother and I worked for Mav, we were both, he was a babyface and I was a heel. So I don't think we ever teamed for Maverick. Because by the time Maverick was running Front Row Wrestling, my brother had quit wrestling.
Okay. Awesome. Now some of the places that you worked, like you said, you worked a few times for Top Rope. Who were
Yeah.
some of the guys you took on in Top Rope when you guys teamed?
My brother and I, we wrestled the Power Twins a handful of time in
Wow.
Top Rope.
Was that Dave and Dean?
Dave and Dean.
Yeah.
I don't know if
Yeah.
the modern audience will remember them as much, but yeah, I wrestled them a lot. I wrestled Vane for Top Rope.
Yep.
I've wrestled my brother a couple of times in Top Rope. I think I worked Brian Fury in a match in Top Rope Wrestling. Trying to think of the. I've worked Mikey B, but I don't think I ever worked in Top Rope Wrestling. I worked him, I think, in Steve's company, WFA. I worked Fantastic Frank. I don't know if you remember Fantastic
No, I don't
Frank.
remember him. No. A
I
name
remember
like
me,
that, I would remember if I saw him.
And then me and Don Vega, I remember we wrestled Joseph Von Schmidt, but he was Pat Gunner still. I can't remember his tag team partner, to be honest with you. And I don't think I ever worked Venom there. I think every time I worked Venom, it was for Sheldon or for WFA. God, but I'm probably forgetting. I'm sure I'm forgetting some of the other guys I worked with.
Well, we had talked about how DC Dillinger and he passed away. Have you ever any memories of running into Nick Steele? Did you know Nick Steele at all?
No, I knew Nick. Yeah, I never worked him. My brother worked him a couple times. Nick was a super nice guy. I always liked him. Nick was one of those guys that he wasn't a jerk or like seemed like, but it was a guy you kind of always thought he could be if he wanted to be.
Right.
Like you wouldn't mess with him. It didn't seem. I always liked Nick. Really nice to me. Always a nice guy. Solid work. Good to have around. It's just it's horrible what happened as well. It's the worst.
Horrible.
I hadn't seen him in a long time. I feel really bad that it happened. Nick's is, I don't know. Again, I know everyone says, everyone baby faces, but I've never had a bad experience with Nick. I've got nothing bad to say about Nick whatsoever. God bless him. I hope.
I only met him once.
His family's doing well.
Yeah, I hope so too. He couldn't have treated me any better. I'm like a nobody. You know what I mean? I went to the show with Sonny. He was just so nice. I mean, such a shame.
Yeah, Nick, always a nice guy. My brother worked with him a handful of times. My brother liked him.
Right.
Yeah, it's horrible. I've never had the handful of times I met Nick. Always been a nice guy. Never had an issue with him whatsoever. I've never really heard anybody ever say anything bad about Nick.
I was gonna say when he passed away over Facebook. I mean, there was so many great stories and nice things said about him by everybody. It was amazing. It was amazing. It really was.
Yeah.
Who was booking at NECW when you guys were teaming there? Was it Sonny?
Yes. When I first worked for Sheldon, I was by myself, and Scott Dickinson was the booker. And then when we started teaming, yes, Sonny was the booker, and then Kevin Kelly was the booker for part of it as well. And then when we left, Kevin Kelly was still the booker, and I think Bob became the booker, but that was after I left. So when we started teaming there, Sonny was the booker.
Okay. Seeing you brought his name up, and Sheldon didn't have some very nice things to say about this guy on my show. What about Bob Evans? You like Bob?
I don't have a personal problem with Bob. Bob's never done anything to me. Bob's trained with me. I've worked Bob. Bob's the only thing I don't like about Bob is like every time someone has any success, Bob's immediately on social media trying in some way to get the rub off him. Like, no matter where it is, no matter who it is, that's always kind of rubbed me the wrong way a little bit about Bob. I've never had a personal issue with Bob. Bob's never done anything to me. I've heard lots of stories and bad things about him, but I can only speak on how he's treated me. Bob's never really treated me badly. The only thing I've ever disliked about Bob is like I've always not a fan of how he's always trying to get the rub off anybody who has any success that's ever come through New England. So, but hey, Bob's done more than I have in this business. So hey, what am I? Who am I to say?
All right. Before we play the name game, is there anything you want to talk about in your career? Is there anything that?
I wish I had done more in my time. I had a great time. I met a lot of fun. I had a lot of people. I got to work with people that went on to great things. I got to book. I'd like to. I've done it before, but I want to thank Jeff Costa for giving me an opportunity. Help me in the ring. I want to thank Michael Crockett because I never would have been the booker for Chaotic if Michael Crockett hadn't put my name in there and went to bat for me.
Nice.
So I've always said that I owe that to Crockett, and I always thank Jamie. And Jamie, a lot of things have been said about him, but Jamie gave me an opportunity, took a chance on me when he didn't really have to, put a lot of faith in me. I really enjoyed. I don't regret wrestling. I just regret that I didn't do more to be more than I was when I was in wrestling. But it was a good time. I really like it. I probably regret I didn't start younger in life.
Right.
I don't know off the top of my head if I would have something to talk about.
Well, you said you started in 98, right? And then did you stop wrestling for a while and then come back in 2008, or was it straight through?
There was a year period when Steve's promotion had ended where I had stopped wrestling altogether, because at that point I was really only wrestling for Steve. And then that all fell apart. Things went really bad. It kind of left a bad taste in my mouth. But then like a year later, I'm like, man, I'm still friends with, and everybody I'm hanging around with all the time is still in the wrestling business. And I was like, why not? So I called up Bob and I called up Maverick. Maverick invited me to come back to the gym, and he started booking me for front row. I did a Bob show or two, and then I just tried to come back and do whatever I could. I think at that point, that would have been the time I should have, because I'd been around a while. I kind of knew how to wrestle better. You know, I kind of had an understanding of how to working. I was in pretty good shape. That's the point where I should have really tried to push myself hard to get in the best shape I could and really try and get my name out there. Especially when, I was wrestling. I eventually made my way to Chaotic as talent, had a good time there. But yeah, there was only that 1 year period there where like I had left the business at the end of WFA, and everybody I was associating with was still wrestling. I was hanging out with Brian Fury and Max Bauer and Nikki Rocks, some of Nightbreed here and there. I had met Michael Crockett, become friends with him. That might have been after wrestling, so I don't know. But yeah, so I was like, I'm going to get back into business. And then, Maverick welcomed me back, booked me on Front Row Wrestling. I did a couple Bob shows, and then I just sort of extended from there.
Right. Okay. Well, we're going to jump in the name game. I'm going to throw some random names. Definitely people that I'm pretty sure you know, so you won't have to go, I don't know that. Wolfie, Jason Sanderson, the Powerball winner.
Wolfie is a interesting fellow. Not particularly a good. I've never found Wolfie was that good of a worker. I always asked Maverick, I think it was, or maybe it was Jeff. I said, "Did he ever bump?" I don't think I've ever seen Wolfman take a bump in my entire life.
Right.
But Wolfman was always very nice to me, very nice to my girlfriend at the time. Nice guy. I got nothing against him. I just I never seen the guy bump once in my.
I think
my
you're
life.
right. I never really thought of that, but I think you're right. I don't think I ever seen him bump either. And I was at almost all of Jeff's shows selling my merchandise. How about Kevin Butcher Hughes?
Kevin is the definition of a character. Like, he is the funniest guy, not always on purpose, that I've ever. I don't know with him if it was an act or there was something, but I just remember one time Jeff did a show where for some reason Maverick was doing like a Japanese gimmick where he had a mask on and all that. And afterwards, Butcher says to Jeff, "Where'd you get that Japanese kid from? That kid was pretty good. Did he come in from Japan?" And I'm like, wait, does he really not know that is
right?
Maverick? Yeah, Kevin is there's one time where I swore instead of the blood sucking alien, he announced him as the blank sucking alien on the house. I swore that's what he said. We all thought he said that. Yeah, Butcher Hughes, he's an interesting guy. He is. Yeah, there's probably stories that could go on till the end of time about Butcher. He's a funny guy, not always on purpose.
Right. Killer's very first student.
Oh yeah, I heard that. Yeah, that's what they had said.
He was Killer's first
even before
student.
Jeff.
Yeah. All right.
I've never seen him work though. I would like to see him work. I've never actually seen one of his matches.
I actually did on YouTube. I punched it in when he was up in Vancouver with Jeff. I saw a couple of matches on YouTube. All right. How about my friend and yours, my partner in the cooking show that we do, Sonny Goodspeed?
Sonny, love Sonny. Love Sonny. I always credit learning to work from Sonny. I was trained. I had a bunch of matches, and then they married me to Sonny, where I worked Sonny every single Jeff show. And I've always credited those matches of how I learned to work, because Sonny didn't do a lot. He did a lot of stalling, and he would
Right.
Sonny would do that, build up the match, and it really taught me how to not. I was so used to spot. You got to do this, and then with Sonny, I had to learn to adapt to actually react and act, and that it's not all called in the back. So I love Sonny. I've always credited Sonny with how I learned to work. Sonny's very creative. He has a lot to offer in the business. Not only I think Sonny has good ideas, but he could have a lot to how to work matches. I think Sonny's great, underrated talent. I think he's another guy that probably could have done more than he did. I don't know because of his size and what it was in the wrestling. I don't know, but I think Sonny's a guy who could have definitely done more than he had ever done. Underrated talent as far as I'm concerned.
Right. And it's nice. He's helping out with Chaotic. He's helping out at APW. I mean, so he's back in, doing what he loves, wrestling, you know what I mean? Not wrestling, but, in the business.
Yeah, being
helping
a part
out
of
at
it.
full promotions. Yeah. It's really cool to see him.
He teamed up with my best friend, Big Daddy Walker. We broke into the business at the same time, and Sonny was his partner, and he helped Dave a lot as well. So, yeah, Sonny's the guy I have. And my only regret about Sonny, he was on my show when I was the one time I wasn't there, so I didn't even get to have him on my show. I was in Disney World. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that was a good one. That was your brother was in there on that, and it was pretty funny. It was a good episode though. Sonny's very charismatic.
Yeah.
All right, so you just took care of the Dave Walker one. How about Iron Man Tim Walker, who I said he's going to be a guest on my show one of the days? You guys should have him on yours. That would be good.
I would love to have Tim. I've always liked Tim. Tim's a good guy. Tim, very solid hand. Tim's only problem ever, he never really had a lot of personality in the ring. He was never a super charismatic guy. Solid hand, decent worker. You could have a good match with Tim. He was definitely a guy that was you wouldn't get a bad match out of him. And if Tim's a guy you could put in there with a guy who didn't really know how to work, and he could take him through a basic match. Tim's only problem ever is he never had that charisma, that over the top. He never was a character. That was my only thing that Tim. The only negative about Tim at all, I think, is he just didn't have enough personality when he was in the ring.
Right. And Dave Walker had plenty of charisma. He did. I used to love watching him wrestle too. All right, I'm going to bring up a guy who gave me all his wrestling merchandise. Pinky Petunia.
Thank you. I love it. I love Pinky. Pinky, super nice guy. He let me crash at his house once when I had to pick up my girlfriend at the airport at like 7 a.m. He let me crash at his house. Worked him once. Good guy. I always liked Pinky. I didn't care for that Bart Hart gimmick. I don't know why I got stuck with that.
Yeah, that was pretty funny.
I just remember one time Pinky did up and over, and he somehow managed to go over the top rope and then right back under the bottom.
Wow.
Don't know how he did it.
Right. I was there the day him and Sonny had the roller skating match.
I wish I could have seen that.
And then I think Sonny got on a bicycle. It was just nuts. You'll have to ask Sonny will be able to tell you that story a lot better. How about, I don't know what his last name is. I know his name is Paul, and he played Stingray, and I wasn't a big fan of him.
Flash Fahrenheit.
Yeah, Flash Fahrenheit.
Yeah. Very odd fellow. I liked him, but very weird. One thing I did like about him is, like myself, he liked to work very stiff. I got to work him once, and we did wallop him. Odd fellow, though. It's hard to describe. Paul was just he's a strange fellow, strange cat. Nice guy, but very odd.
Okay.
The only way I can describe Paul.
How about your last two guests? We'll go with Max Smashmaster.
I like. I've known Scott since he broke in with Steve. I've always liked him. He's kind of abrasive, like he said in the show, so I could see while some people don't like him. I'm happy that he's had so much success in Shikar. Hopefully, he can come back someday and do more. Very opinionated guy. We don't see eye to eye on Shikara or intergender wrestling, but like I said in the show, that's okay. Apples and oranges, not everything's for everyone. I'm not a big Shikara guy, but hey, I'm happy that he's had the success. Despite what people think and what I've said, I want everybody to be successful that comes from New England. I have to really dislike you for me not to want you to have success. So there's no one. I want everybody to be successful, whether or not I like it or not. So I'm very happy that he's had the success he's had, and I hope that he can make a comeback. He's still young. Still much he can do in this business.
Yeah, if he can get the clearance from his doctor, that would be great to see him come back. But I will say this, and he's probably not going to like it, but I'm going to say it anyways. I think he's Mayor McCheese. I do. I think I caught him. He took a picture from the table at Chaotic and posted it as McCheese, and It wasn't Rich Palladino taking the picture. Big Scott, I think it's you.
It could be. I've heard rumors that Mayor McCheese isn't the original Mayor McCheese. That somebody else was him at the beginning, and then the persona's been adopted over the years. I don't know how true it is. You gotta have him on your show and do like the black,
I'd love to
disguise his voice.
Yeah.
That would be a coup to get on your show.
I think Tony Delfonso's been one. I pretty much heard that AG was one back in the day. So I think it's been a bunch of different people.
I've heard Sean Gorman. I've heard Tony Delfonso. Yeah. I've heard so many people. I've heard Todd Sopel. It's I don't know if that mystery's ever going to actually be solved.
No, I hear you. Not. Well, it's funny. You know Dan Terry, the wrestler Dan Terry?
I think I know who he is. I don't know if I've ever met him, to be honest.
Well, he hit me up telling me it was me and Sonny. I'm like, listen, dude, I'm too nice of a guy to be Mayor McCheese, and so is Sonny. I mean, that it's not us, Sonny, that's for sure. Yeah.
Sonny doesn't seem
Nah.
I don't think Sonny would have the time.
I think
plus that's a lot of effort. That's a lot of time spent, doing tweets and all that. I don't think Sonny would have the time to waste on something like that. But who the hell knows?
Right. And in McCheese's defense, some of it's clever and funny. You know what I mean?
Sometimes I think I've laughed out loud. I think some of it's very
too. Yeah. No, he's handed me a few times. All right. How about a guy that Sonny said his name on my show like 20 times last time he was on because he told him to do it. Joey Eastman.
Joey? I like Joey. I know there was a time that I didn't think much of Joey. He brought it up on my podcast where I wouldn't say I didn't think much of him. I like Joey. I've always liked him. Joey, I just thought when he first came around, he was very notorious for stealing heat, which we discussed on my show, which I should have said at the time. I didn't, and that's on me. But I think Joey's come along well. I'm not all of his stuff. The Sidney Bacavella is not all my style of humor, but I like Joey. I think he's a good manager. I wish there were more managers. I think there was more they could do. I think it's a lost art. You can't have too many, but we definitely could have some more than we do. But I mean, again, Joey's had great success. Good for him. I like Joey personally. He's helped out a lot of guys that were. I got nothing bad to say about Joey at all. I like him. I hope he'll come back on the show again.
Nice. I actually had Sidney, not Joey, on my show. It was very strange.
I can imagine.
Dude, he's in like the 70s. I'm in the 2000s. It was like unbelievable. Seriously, my favorite show I've ever done because it was so hard not to laugh as he's going along. You know what I mean? It was a lot of fun.
I do like the fact that he never breaks that character. I'm a big fan of the fact that never gets broken. So, that part about it I do like. I wish more people did that.
Right.
But Sean Gorman doesn't break character either. So.
No, he doesn't. And I actually told Sean that when I met him, like when he came to do my show, was that I thought he really is an arrogant guy in real life. You know what I mean? It's pretty much him. All right. You brought him up earlier. The Setherin and Gallo, Nightbreed. What about those guys? And Jen also. Part of him.
I've been friends with Amato for a long time. I've always liked him. I've worked with him. I think Amato is a good worker. Amato, I think, or Setherin, I should say, his problem is I think he takes a lot of stuff personal a lot of times in the business. And it's not always the case. I mean, everybody does that to an extent. They never should have took so much time off. They could have done some more. I'm not saying they would have been signed by WWE or anything, but they were a hot item. They had a good look. When they were together, they were over.
Yeah.
They should have stayed together. I think they could have done a lot more. I think they still have stuff to offer. I know Amato's older now, and they're both older, but you can still definitely get stuff out of them. They're good guys to have around. They could be a good tag match. They never should have. I don't know all the details of why, but they never should have.
Right.
They should have separated. They could have done more, but I don't know how much Gallo. I don't know how much fire he has to be like wrestling being his life. I think it's more of he likes to do it, but likes to do it on his own time. So,
but I mean, they're working for APW. I don't know if you know, but I do the concessions for APW now. Sonny got me that job. But
all right,
it's nice to see them guys, together, back together. I should say. When they got back together, it was great. And Jen's doing some good things too up there in APW, having some great matches with Angel Sinclair and Mistress Belmont, Kathy. So good stuff up there. How about Tommy Mack? I know you wrestled Tommy. I think I was there that night. Yep.
I booked Tommy a couple of times. Tommy's got a personality that a lot of people have clashed with over the years. I don't personally dislike Tommy.
Right.
We're trying to get him on the show. In fact,
Nice.
I mean, we're not like friends. So he got me booked on a top rope show. He and I drove up together. I don't dislike Tommy. I can see some people have had problems with him in the past. I've never disliked him. And I mean, I haven't talked to the guy in years. So
right.
I always thought he was a really good seller. I know that sounds lame. Like I'm trying to search for comment. I've always said Tommy Mack was a good seller. He's a guy that he does his shows. They're successful the way I hear. I haven't talked to him in a while, so I'm not sure he's. I don't know what he's up to now, but we're hoping to get him on the show, talk about his company up there in New Hampshire.
Nice. That'd be awesome. I'd love to see that. I'd love to listen to you guys do that show. Go ahead.
But I think he had a different perception of wrestling when he came in the door, when he first started training. I don't know. I think some people didn't think that he listened to people as much at the beginning, but I mean, that was a long time ago. So who knows what happened at this point in time. I haven't seen him in a while. Last time I saw him, I booked him for Chaotic Show. We got along fine. There's
I was actually at his last show that he did up in Concord, and he had about a good 700 people there, at least.
So he's still doing shows.
Yeah, he did one. He's doing one a year.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Perfect. Yeah. So yeah, I would like to get him on the show. I've heard those shows. Maybe it's smarter that he does like little, because then he can put all of his energy into one show and draw a good house. So,
yeah. No, he definitely did well. So we got less than a minute. Do you want to plug your podcast or anything?
Yeah. If anybody wants to listen, every other Wednesday we're Truth, Justice, and New England Pro Wrestling Way. You can find us on all podcasting apps, all major apps. We have a guest every week. We usually talk about a topic or their career. We try and stick away from doing the old let's talk about your life thing. We try and stick to a topic. If you can like, share, subscribe. If you have any questions, suggestions for guests, please come to the show. Leo, I hope you'll come on the show. That'd be
I'd love to. I appreciate that.
I'd love to have you and Julian debate wrestling now compared to what it used to be, because Julian's not as big on it as now. Yeah. So I'm looking for someone to take the other end of the spectrum. So that'd be a good episode. We're trying to go weekly right now, but we're not yet. So.
All right. Well, Matt, thanks for coming on, and I'll talk to you soon.
All right. Thank you very much for having me. I really appreciate it.
No problem, bud. Take care.
The preceding program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.